Okay, there we are. Happy New Year. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Studio 8.1, episode 17. I've been away. That's why I'm out of practice. That's why I opened with something that didn't make any sense. It's me, Jarvis Todd, publisher of Telemedia magazine, proprietor of World Telemedia, brains behind Telemedia 8.1. Who is sitting alongside me with Mr. Paul Skeldon, who is our editor-in-chief. He's the wordsmith. He writes about Telemedia, which is basically everything to do with mobile payments or alternative payments, value-added services, premium content. We talk about how merchants and brands market that content to consumers, and the relationship between platform operators, technology providers, MNOs, the whole darn value chain. That's what we mean by Telemedia. Hello, Paul.
Hello, mate. How are you? Really Supporter of a beautiful suntan. It's in progress.
Yes. Well, we'll talk about that a bit later.
We will.
I don't know. Just have to say very quickly, Paul flew solo 2 weeks ago because I was away in Mexico at the ClickBid Tullum event, which was excellent. Thank you to those guys. Big shout out to Enrique and Emil and JC. Did a great job. Paul did a very, very good job as well on his own. So thanks for doing that, mate. I actually listened in and found it extremely interesting.
Oh, excellent. I kind of tried to do it as if you were with me or asked the questions you might have asked.
Well, you did a great job. I mean, I almost feel slightly redundant, but let's try and see if I can add a bit of value to this value-added services podcast. Let me tell you what we're going to be talking about today. We've picked out 3 or 4 kind of interesting stories that we think you should be aware of. Traditionally, anyone that watches the podcast knows that we often lament the role of the MNOs. This time, we've got some good news for them. So we're going to be talking about the impact of 5G on voice users and how this will create loads of new opportunities for MNOs and service providers alike. That also links into a couple of excellent editorial pieces that Paul puts together on a bi-monthly basis, and you can read those on telemediaonline.co.uk if you don't receive our newsletter. We're then going to also pile on more good news. It's like Christmas for MNOs because some more research shows that multi-factor authentication could be generating some very big money for them around the world this very year. We're then going to talk a little bit about esports and a really interesting seminar that's coming up on Thursday, the 12th, which is 2 days from now, featuring Cookies Digital and MEF and a very famous footballing icon from Italy. Finally, we're also going to tell you about how you can meet Paul and I on the road as we take a little road trip down to Malaga for Genesis 2022. And I must just say, I went onto the website and it said, and you know, great company, ROCCO. It says Genesis Live, and I was just thinking,
I thought they'd quit.
You could get a little bit disappointed if Phil and Mike and it actually is a telecom show and not a prog rock event. But anyway, moving swiftly on, let's get started. So, without further ado, the first story is, you missed that, didn't you?
I did it. I tried to do it in your absence, but not with as much flair and verve.
Great, mate. So the story reads 5G voice users to reach 2.5 billion globally by 2026, creating new business services and competition for OTT. This research comes from our great friends at Juniper, who have been prolific in this last couple of weeks. The report is entitled Mobile Voice Strategies, Future Monetization Opportunities and Market Forecast 2022 to 2026. There is a link on that story on Telemedia Online, and you can go and see a summary of that report and even buy a copy of the full darn thing if you really want to dig deeper than we are going to go right now. So, Paul, 5G, we talked about it a lot. Yeah, you know, easy to sort of big up the potential opportunity. It was a bit of a slow burner to start with, but now it sounds like it's really sort of there's some tangible benefits.
Yeah, really starting to come into its own. It's, as you say, it's been a long time coming, but I think they're now sort of people are starting to see the potential in it. Now, this is particularly interesting in the voice over 5G side of things, because you'd think it's just a a fast telephone network. This is all about data, and you wouldn't be wrong. But of course, you can do voice services over it too. Bringing that together with what you can do with data is going to be a real big boon for mobile network operators. They'll be able to do this thing primarily that enhances voice calls. It's enhanced voice calling, where you can sort of share video and images and links and web pages and just make the whole thing through a voice phone call on a smart device, just much more interactive. Now, this is something you can sort of do already with things like WhatsApp, and WhatsApp has sort of in many ways stolen a march on network operators, because obviously it runs over their network, but over the top, hence the OTT. So the networks themselves don't really see much benefit out of it, apart from it uses up some of the data, which is already commoditized and sold in sort of blocks to consumers anyway. So there's no benefit really to network operators in this. But running their own enhanced voice services using 5G means they can do all sorts of things with it, possibly even better stuff than you can do with WhatsApp. And of course, everybody in business loves this sort of interactivity. So there's potentially a massive opportunity to sell these services to corporate users for customer service, for customer care, that sort of thing. I mean, imagine ringing up your sort of trusted service provider and wanting to talk about something, and they can share videos and images and tell you how to fix your boiler and all that kind of stuff there just from one simple phone call. It's got really great potential. It's something that's been trialed already out there by Ericsson, Samsung and Telefonica back in February of this year. And it's looking like it's going to sort of start to be rolled out as a serious service, probably not in 2022. This is probably 2023 onwards, but I think we'll be hearing and talking a lot more about this. And it is sort of something that network operators can and should, I think, really get behind. It's something that can put them back up there as offering a service that's sort of really cutting edge and out there, and not just sort of, well, I hate to say it, but not just being a dumb pipe.
But do you not think, I'm sure you do think that, I mean, with the telemedia industry having such deep roots in voice services, because obviously telemedia was around and premium voice services were around long before mobile and the internet. Do you think that those sort of traditional telemedia service providers, a larger proportion of which are still very active in the market, would be the key to partnering with the networks to enable those services? Because it's unlikely, isn't it, that the real magic and the real creativity is going to come from the networks. It's probably going to be a partnership between sort of aggregated service providers, brands, and the networks. But the networks need to get on board and understand the opportunity. Presumably.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it does sort of take us back possibly to those glory days when it did used to all be about premium voice services. But just think what you could do if those voice calls now are sort of enriched by interactivity and the data you can share and the videos and imagery and all sorts of things. I mean, this does potentially, in simple terms, could potentially revolutionize things like horoscopes and sort of chat services and pretty much any of the old traditional premium rate things are there to be suddenly probably reborn and reinvigorated. And yes, they'll have to partner with the telemedia guys, but for network operators and for the telemedia industry, this is, I think, sort of potentially monumental news. It also, we've talked a lot in the past sort of couple of years about things like CPaaS and customer interaction, all that. It all just adds into that as well. And I think another thing I wrote a few weeks ago, looking at one of the other sides of 5G, is that it's also going to sort of be what powers the sort of mainstream uptake of things like virtual reality and the metaverse and stuff like that. And I think we're going to see within a year all of this colliding, and it opens up the possibility for so many wonderful services, from the high-end e-commerce stuff and through the customer service stuff, and out the other side of it, with all those things that were once premium rate voice services can now be just made into something really fantastic and really fast.
It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because it's sort of the voice equivalent of RCS on the messaging side. So they're all kind of going in the same direction and probably fighting for the same sorts of spaces. It's going to be interesting. Again, RCS took some time to get going. And so interactive voice is some way behind in terms of the start. But it'd be interesting to see how quick they all get there, and how closely aligned they become, because it does sound as though there's a very similar pitch to both sides of that market.
I think they're becoming sort of one thing, because like obviously, as you say, with RCS and those sort of smarter, richer messaging services, you can also add to what was essentially a text message all this other richness. And I think what you're going to see is it's just going to be one big thing: voice messaging, adding data and rich content, and the services you can build out of that is just going to create, I don't know what these services are yet, but I think that there's going to be some really interesting things. And there's some, we work in an industry that's full of forward-thinking, innovative people who are going to just take this and come up with some fantastic things that we can't even begin to imagine. And it'll reinvigorate the MNO side of things, and the telemedia industry will get a real boost. Going to see some good stuff, I think.
Yeah, no, I must say, and I think it's worth pointing out that for anybody that is interested in finding out what the future of interactive voice services and RCS services is going to look like, it's worth earmarking the 19th and 21st of October, because the great thinkers of the industry will be gathering in Marbella for World Telemedia. And there's no doubt that they'll be talking about how they can use this technology to enhance services and provide premium billable services to a new breed of consumers that are desperate and expecting this kind of richness in their way that they communicate with their brands and with their customer services and with their merchants. For anyone that doesn't know, as I mentioned, there is a link to this particular report within the story. It also asks key questions: how will emerging voice technologies impact the future mobile voice market? What strategies must stakeholders implement to capitalize on the re-emergence of voice as a profitable channel? And we didn't think we were going to say that very in a hurry. And what will the value of the mobile voice market be in 2026? It asks other questions as well. Those are the key ones. And also the other editorial references with Paul did an excellent blog on the 5th of May and on the 21st of April. One was 5G interactive calling is the MNO's secret weapon. So why aren't they using it? So Paul was already talking about interactive calling before this report came out. So well done, mate. You were ahead of Juniper on that one. And also on the 21st of April, the editorial read how 5G holds the key to the future of interaction. So if you were in any doubt that Telemedia was ahead of the curve, then there you go. You've got it right there. So moving on to the second story. Second story is, again, more good news for MNOs. This is all about multi-factor authentication to generate 27 billion globally for MNOs in 2022. So it's Christmas time for these guys. Operators are going to generate this huge sum of money by terminating SMS messages related to multi-factor authentication. Do you want to talk us through what multi-factor authentication?
Well, I mean, we've all done it, haven't we? When you try and buy something off the internet, even if you use something like PayPal, you have to log into PayPal, which is the first part of your authentication, and then you have to wait while it sends you a code to your phone to enter, which is the second part, making it multi-factor. So you've unlocked PayPal with your password, which has been recognized by your face or your thumbprint, and then you've got a text message. So multi-factor authentication is how almost all of these payments are secured, so that they can be as sure as possible it's the person you want to be paying is paying. But it's all done currently by SMS, and it looks like it's going to continue to be done using SMS, because it's a very simple thing. It just needs a 5-6 digit number to be sent to someone. You don't need to get embroiled in RCS or anything rich. This is, in many ways, the opposite of what we were just talking about. This is something that's kind of in the background, very functional, and just requires good old simple SMS. But so many people are paying for things online, and they'll be doing it through rich services delivered kind of through these enhanced voice services and RCS and all that, but they'll probably still rely on SMS to do multi-factor authentication. And this is going to be a big boom, of course, for operators. They don't make much money out of text normally. We all get it as part of our our sort of package of minutes and things as consumers, but businesses will pay to send text messages. And in the case of these authentication ones, they sort of almost have to pay to do it. So it's a great little revenue stream for MNOs, and it's predicting 5% growth, which for a technology as old and basic as SMS is astounding.
Yeah,
taking it to 27 billion of your American dollars. That's that's a sizable market. And I think, again, like you say, good news for MNOs. Suddenly they're being offered this two-pronged lifeline for their two basic things, voice and messaging, and they suddenly can offer a panoply, a cornucopia of new services and old services like this, probably at the same time.
They're leading a charmed life. Those
MNOs. They are this week, yes.
Like getting a brushing from all.
They've got to make it work though. They've got to seize this opportunity, or someone will find a different way of doing it.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in this particular story, again, those prolific researchers at Juniper have produced a report called Mobile Authentication, Future Strategies and Market Forecast 22 to 2027. And again, there's a link to that through that story. I mean, one of the other things that really just, I know we get excited about big numbers, and we've been very lucky over the last 3 or 4 years to report on big numbers, which mean big business and big opportunities for the telemedia sector. But I just noticed, Keith Brand, just to reinforce that point, said automating traffic detection is crucial for operators as well. And I think there's something that you sort of touched on there, because I think you need to be able to identify the premium messages within the free ones, which is going to become a big issue, simply because multi-factor authentication traffic is set to grow by 2.1 billion messages. So as I understand it, there's a new set of problems, because you can't just pile more messaging into the system without then having to work out which bits are premium and which bits are sort of part of bundled up and free. And so there's a whole big issue now about how you sort of unpick this web of messaging. Is that right? Yeah,
no, absolutely. I mean, and to make the existing sort of SMS system work effectively, I mean, because SMS, as those of you may remember from the old days when we used to have to explain how SMS worked, is a store and forward thing. So you send it, it gets stored, then it's forwarded on. But you want that to be as quick as possible, particularly when you're waiting for an authentication code so you can buy, your groceries. So I think making that system work more efficiently, yes, is going to require this understanding of traffic flows, what those messages are, prioritizing them, and as the report points out, this is sort of machine learning, artificial intelligence is going to play a key role in working out what these are. And I think conversely, it's going to be working out what the other traffic is and what that's doing and what other services can be offered around that. So we're going to see a surge in artificial intelligence within the actual operation of telecoms networks.
And presumably also that will include detecting fraud as well on the networks.
I guess so. I mean, already our friends at the various fraud prevention detection companies already use machine learning and some degree of artificial intelligence to try and root it out. But yes, I think that's obviously going to be ramped up, and it's going to be at every stage of the sort of transit of messages and traffic is trying to understand what they are. And I guess the artificial intelligence will get better and better at doing that. But then again, the fraudsters will get better and better at getting around it, probably using artificial intelligence themselves. So it's a bit like Terminator, but with messages.
It really is.
And way less exciting.
In very much the same way as cookies are not just things that you eat. They can also be very clever digital entertainment companies, which brings us on to the next story, which is about our great friends, World Telemedia sponsors Cookies Digital, who have teamed up with MEF to run an esports seminar, which features Alessandro Del Piero, Italian legend. Not him, but Alessandro. And one of the promises is that they're going to give back all they've learned about this new form of digital entertainment. Now, we are not, that in itself is the story. We think that it's going to be very interesting. It's really great to see, big brands, big personalities aligning themselves with telemedia companies to create innovative new formats, which we're going to be expecting to be very successful. But so that is so I would say go to the website, click on the link. You've got a couple of days. 12th of May is the actual date. I'm sure there'll be a recorded stream, but it's going to be a really interesting webinar. I'm definitely going to that one, and I think it's also worth pointing out that I think in general, over the next 6 months, as we look towards World Telemedia, one of the great benefits of World Telemedia is that people go there to find out what's new, what's innovative from a content value-added services point of view. Now, obviously, esports isn't new. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised that esports is high on the agenda. But bearing in mind that we've been talking about it for 2 years, there's numerous. All you have to do is go to telemediaonline.co.uk, search esports, and you'll find a wealth of stories that Paul's put out over the last couple of years, often based off from very good research. Again, lots of big numbers. Esports is going to be worth billions around the world. The uptake is, trillions. I mean, the numbers are bonkers around it. But everyone's talking about it. But I think now we're getting to that stage, a little bit like RCS, where we're well into it now. People are sort of, they're beyond the innovation stage. It's actually some of these products are out there and actually really generating some nice numbers. So I think it's particularly interesting to follow one of the early adopters, which is Cookies, to see how they're adapting and how they're taking this new vertical and really turning it into I would say a telemedia mainstay, actually. So yeah, I mean, obviously, Paul, I mean, you've been talking about esports a lot. I mean,
yeah, I love esports. Just separately, while doing some research about something else into the uptake of sports and buying sports equipment. A survey of people in Europe, esports came out as the 6th most sort of played sport in Europe. So it's above rugby, it's above hockey, it's above almost everything apart from sort of going jogging and playing football. It is esports. But yeah, I mean it's a sort of new kind of value of premium content, and it's become massive. I mean, we're talking to various people about it. The last time we did World Telemedia, we did our Mobile World Congress alternative version, didn't we, when they closed it down in 2020. A lot of talk about it then. It's just blossomed over the lockdown into this sort of massive industry. And Cookies, as you say, right at the forefront of it in terms of delivering some really sort of cool services and some white labeled products around that. And it's gonna be a great webinar. I'd be interested to hear the MEF angle on it as well, because they're more sort of independent as to what their take on the whole esports thing and where it's going is as well. So be tuning into that. You also can get a copy of it afterwards if you can't actually make it on the day.
You say it. I mean, obviously, I wouldn't disagree with you. I mean, MEF's perspective on esports will be fascinating. I'm particularly looking forward to what ex-Italian footballer thinks about the digital content market and how he's grasped that. That's going to be really the interesting aspect from my point of view, I think. But I mean, I think also picking up on that. I mean, I had lunch actually yesterday with who I hope will be a new and big entrant into the telemedia market, a company called SL24, Sports Locker 24, which has appeared in the past, and they have a number of different content verticals. Video on demand, football, a lot of sport, video on demand, a lot of football, a lot of betting and casino and gaming, and they kind of fit together in a sort of very obvious package. And particularly with the football, we were talking about World Telemedia coming up in October, which will be not that long before the World Cup. So of course, apart from your diehard football fans, as soon as you get something like the World Cup coming on, everyone becomes a diehard football fan. So I think anything to do with football, sports, because obviously you've got the FIFA thing with the esports. So there's lots of kind of tie-ups, I think, there, which will sort of culminate in a lot of interest around digital content, around those sorts of content forms and all the things that go on around that. So a bit like the Grand National. All of a sudden, you fancy a bet, you're not a regular gambler. So, they all fit together. So when you've got the focus of something like the World Cup, I think it will benefit, and there'll be a ripple effect with lots of other areas. And so, again, it just goes to show that somewhere like World Telemedia is an excellent place to see the full range of premium content, premium services, and try to capitalize on the sort of mood music of the time, because obviously that's as big a part of what people are searching for, what people are thinking about buying, and how they want to be entertained on their mobile devices. So they actually brought it up with me and said that the timing of World Telemedia was going to be interesting because of the World Cup. So I might even ask Alejandro a question or two about football.
Ask him if he can come to World Telemedia.
I've already run that past Valentina.
Of course you have, and she's hopeful.
Yeah, she said, yeah, no problem.
I'll tell Pep Guardiola not to bother then.
No, we don't need him. We don't need to famous Italian. So right, or he might be Spanish. I'm not sure.
He's Spanish, yes.
Yeah. Okay, for all our global watchers.
Yeah, that's what Brexit does to people, folks.
Talking of Spanish, I love that. Great segue, mate. And finally, I think it's important to give a little bit of support to our friends at ROCCO, because Paul and I, as I mentioned earlier, will be hitting the road at the end of this week, and as we prepare for the Genesis 2022. I won't do the live thing again. It was done. We've done that, and which is also sitting alongside an event called the IO Plenary. #02, and it's going to be happening in Malaga. The reason why we're going to be there is because it brings together the telecoms community to stimulate industry innovation for a more connected world. That's obviously something that we feel very much aligned to. And what they have done is they've brought together a really high level focus group, but there's a lot of operators there. So I suppose that's one of the reasons why we probably wanted to be a bit more operator positive with this podcast, because we don't want them chasing us around the hotel, talking about how their demise is imminent. There's going to be companies like 3, A1 Telecom, Deutsche Telekom, Infobip, MTN, Orange, Telefonica, Telenor, Vodafone, and of course World Telemedia / Telemedia Magazine. So I would urge anyone to go and have a look at the website. There's going to be some really interesting stuff there, and as I say, some real high-end representatives from those very important companies. Paul, what are your plans for Malaga?
Well, I want to sit in on the conference because there's some interesting sort of thought leadership stuff there about how to take the telecoms industry sort of into the sort of next level. So I'm hoping they're going to cover many of the things we talked about earlier in this podcast and more. And I'm hoping to sort of meet and talk to a load of people, get some more facts, absorb some more forward-thinking knowledge, and make some video interviews and get some sort of interesting stories for subsequent podcasts, newsletters, magazines, and all the other things we do, and also some ideas as to that we can copy and do better at World Telemedia.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm really looking forward to it. And I might even get an opportunity on Sunday to top up my sunburn.
Top up your sunburn, indeed.
So I think we've probably got to the end of another wonderful episode. Thank you so much for your time. I'm going to see you in the airport, mate.
Quite possibly at either Malaga airport or at the hotel.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
I shall be in a Hawaiian shirt.
Yes, you will. So thank you everyone for joining us. All of those stories can be found on telemediaonline.co.uk, along with all the associated links. Please go there, share it with your friends, and like us and share us, and generally support us. And don't forget World Telemedia, 19th, 21st of October. That is wtevent.com. You can now book your meeting space. So drop me a line if you are looking for a stand, a meeting table, mini lounge, or any other anything else that will help you support your sales and marketing activity. So until next time, until the weekend.
Yeah, till the weekend for you and I. For everyone else who's watching, we'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Adios, mate. Amigo.
Adios.